What we're now going to do is remove the default splash screen that you see on the Laravel installation, and we're going to go ahead and create our home controller and a route to our home controller, which is then going to show our view. So we're going to go ahead and take a little look around the Laravel installation here, just so we can familiarize ourselves with different areas of this and where everything goes. Now, first of all, let's take a look at the public folder. This is basically what you would see in a sort of public view. And you've got this file index.php. Now, do not modify this really unless you absolutely need to for some reason. This isn't the file that we're going to be modifying. We're going to be doing everything within inside of app. We're not going to venture into public at all, but this is where you would store things like images, style sheets, and then you would refer to them within your views. So we'll go in now and take a look at routes, controllers, and views. But public is something that you would see in a sort of public facing environment. You wouldn't see app. This is all restricted to what gets passed from index.php and used here. So what we'll do now is take a look at the routes file. Now, I haven't modified anything within this Laravel installation. This is as it came installed via Composer, and you can see here that we've got an application routes file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this just because it's distracting. We don't want it to be there for this series. Basically, what we've got here is we have a route model here, or object, which allows us, or class, which allows us to specify the type of request we want. Now, get is obviously just landing on the page, a simple get request, but we can also have things like post or any, which will be get and post, or get or post rather. And what this is doing is it's defining the URL pattern here. So this could be anything really, but this is just going to be sort of the root directory here. And then we've got a closure here, which then returns view make hello. So we'll have a little look at views and how this is working. But what's basically happening here is it's returning this, what's generated, if you like, by this view make method. And hello exists as a view in the views folder. So we're currently in routes here, which is just within the app directory. But if we look within views, we've got this hello.php file. And this code here is what you can see within the browser here. So this is the code that's being output as this view, but we actually also have the ability to use controllers to control this as well, rather than just returning a view specifically. So if we have a look in controllers, we can see that we've got a base controller, which all of our controllers, or the majority of the time, our controllers will extend. So for example, if we look at home controller, we've got a class of home controller extends base controller. Now this is how it works. We hit routes and we get a specific URL pattern, whether that be users, profile, whatever. We hit this specific pattern, and in this case it's the root directory, which we can see here. We're not entering anything after public, we're just hitting the root directory, so it's effectively this / here. So what we're then going to do is we're going to, this closure will return the view here, which will then just return what we can see inside of this view if we look inside of this file, hello.php. So it's returning hello, which is the name of the file. So this must match the file name here. Now that's fairly straightforward, but what happens if we want to include functionality like checking things, for example registering a user and everything like that? Well, we have the option to be able to pass everything to a controller. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to create a route which relates to the home page, if you like, the sort of just root directory. What's then going to do is pass that request onto a controller, this home controller here. We're going to remove this function that's or this method that's been created for us. It's going to pass on the request to the controller, and this controller is then going to render the view. And that basically, all that means is that if we need to include any additional functionality here, it's completely separated from the routes. So the steps are, your application will hit routes, it will then forward it onto a controller, which will then show a view. So we've got route, view, controller. View, route, controller, view. So that's how we're going to work things. We're going to remove the hello.php file because we don't need that, and we're also going to get rid of this method here and this comments here. So you can go ahead and read them if you want, but since we're working within home control and we don't really need these comments. So hello.php we're going to go ahead and get rid of. We don't want this. This is the default view. Now you can see that because I've removed that, when I refresh we get this error and it says view hello not found, which is obvious because we've just gone ahead and deleted the file, so this would make sense. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll also go ahead and get rid of this closure because we're not going to be actually creating this closure like this and doing anything within this block of code. What we do want to do is pass an array here. And what this array is going to do is it's going to first of all name this route. So we're going to give it something really user friendly, and then we're going to tell the route which controller to use to pass us on to the controller. So let's go ahead and create this array, and this may not make sense at first, but it should become clear after a while. So we're going to say array as, in fact what we could do is bring this down a bit just so it makes a bit more sense. So as home. So what I've done is I've called this home. This is the name I've given to my route. What I can then do is go ahead and say which controller it uses. Now the controller I want this to use is home controller. So I'm specifying the name of the controller that it's going to use exactly the same way it's been defined when I name it. So that makes sense. What I'm then going to do is within here I'm going to create a method that I want to actually handle the request from this URL. So I'm going to go ahead and type public function home. So all this is going to do is it's going to allow me to say at home. So at means I'm accessing a specific method within this controller. So this is the controller and this is the method. So this is the method here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and return home. Now what this will do is it will just basically do the equivalent of show home on the page, and let's take a look now at what happens. So I'm not passing this to any views at the moment. We'll go ahead and create the view for the home page in just a moment, but what it is doing is it's passing us from the route that we've defined to this specific controller. Now if you're wondering what this is even for, we use this later on when we link to the home page. So it just provides a sort of shorthand way to link to the home page. But for now we've got our home controller which just returns the string home. So when I go ahead and refresh, you now see that we get the string home. So that's now created a route to a controller, and then it's now outputting just a string. Now we don't want to do this. We want to go ahead and actually render a view. So under views, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and I'm going to save this as home.blade.php. Now the blade part of this file is really crucial. What we didn't see before on the hello.php file is this blade extension. And what blade is a templating engine within Laravel, which allows for us to do cool things within our views. And by cool things I mean not having to do things like this. What it does allow us to do is output different variables and do if statements, loops, everything that would be able to access within PHP within this view easily. So for example, this means output something. So that will output hello. So let's go ahead and just return view make, and it does take a little while to get used to the syntax here, but view make home. So what that's going to now do is we don't need to define .blade or anything like that. It will automatically look for a blade extension as well. What that's now going to do is it's going to return, instead of a string that we had earlier, it's going to return the contents of this home view within the views folder. So as long as this is within the views folder, it will find this home name, whether it's a blade extension or not, and it will output whatever's within the view. So let's just go ahead and modify this just so we can see the difference. So when I refresh here, it says hello there. Perfect. So of course I could have just said hello there, but the beauty of this is I can do things like if statements like this. So if 1 is true. So if I go ahead and refresh, 1 is true. So I've created now an if statement within my view using the Blade syntax. So I can also do something like if 0, 1 is true, else 1 is, 1 is, I'll just put false here and true here. So if we go ahead and look there, so useless example, but we can see now how the Blade syntax looks, what the Blade syntax looks like. Let's go ahead and just type hello here for now, because what we're going to be doing is in the next video we're going to be looking at the template for our application and actually building up our navigation system and building up a template. And what this allows us to do is not have to reuse data within home. We want to create a doc type, we want to create a head of our page, we want a body, we want scripts to be at the bottom. We don't want to have to keep adding these to each of the views we create. So we're going to create a sort of object oriented layout that we can extend and then implement content with. So it's highly effective when you're using the Blade templating system. So that's how we create a root for the initial or the root directory of our site. We name it, we choose what controller we want to pass the routing to. The functionality runs within here, and in this case all we're doing is we're just returning a view, which is the home view, and then we're just outputting this view. So within our application now, we've now created effectively what is our home page.